Osaro's rise to power was meteoric. With his newfound wealth, he draped himself in the finest suits, rode in tinted SUVs with private security, and moved into a luxurious duplex in the heart of the city. His congregation had grown tenfold, spilling over into a newly acquired mega auditorium. The once soft-spoken, humble young man was now Prophet Osarodion, a man of influence, a spiritual giant in the eyes of his followers. To the public, he was a testimony of divine favor. To his inner circle, he was a man consumed by his pursuit of power. Yet in his own mind, Osaro believed he was still working with God. I only did what was necessary, he reassured himself every night. I do not steal. I don't fornicate. I don't deceive. I just made a sacrifice, the way Abraham was ready to. His conscience remained numb, soothed by the applause of the masses. The testimonies that flooded his church every Sunday were his justification. If God were against me, would these miracles still happen? He often thought. But not everyone was blind to his transformation. His uncle, Reverend Sosa, had watched from afar, disturbed by the subtle shift in his nephew. The boy who once devoured scripture and served in the small family church was now adorned in gold rings, commanding private jets for crusades. The humility in his eyes had been replaced with something else, something darker. One evening, Reverend Sosa visited Osaro at his mansion. "Osaro, my son, I see that you have grown," the old man began cautiously. "But I fear that this growth is not of God." Osaro smiled, but he didn't reach his eyes. "Uncle, if God wasn't with me, would he bless me this much?" "The devil can also bless," Reverend Sosa countered, "but his blessings come with a price." Osaro leaned back, feigning amusement. "Uncle, I have done nothing wrong. I am still the same Osaro you raised. Maybe you are just bitter because your church is still struggling." That was the last time Reverend Sosa spoke to his nephew. He left with a heavy heart, praying that the boy he once knew would return before it was too late. But Osaro was too far gone. With each sacrifice, Osaro's church grew. The miracles were undeniable. He healed the sick, made barren women conceive, and turned paupers into millionaires. His fame spread across the country. Politicians sought his blessings. Celebrities knelt at his feet, but something was changing. Osaro had barely slept for months. Ever since he followed Prophet Abuntance's instructions and sealed the Dark Covenant, strange things had begun happening. It started with the dreams. At first, they were faint whispers, like the wind rustling through dried leaves at night. But as the days passed, the voices became clearer. Tiny, frightened voices, pleading, crying. Sometimes he would wake up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, his heartbeats pounding in his ears. He tried to ignore them, but the nightmares only grew worse. One night, in the dream, he found himself in the church, alone. The grand auditorium that once symbolized his triumph was now eerily empty, except for the sound of distant whimpers. He turned toward the altar, and there, beneath it, were tiny fingers, grasping, pushing, desperate to break free. His chest tightened as he took a step forward, but before he could react, the ground beneath him cracked open, and the cries turned into ear-piercing wails. He jolted awake, panting. During the day, strange occurrences followed. The children in the church, especially the toddlers, grew restless whenever they were near the altar. Some would cry uncontrollably, their little hands reaching toward the floor as if sensing something unseen. A few mothers even stopped coming, whispering among themselves about how their children would wake up screaming at night after service. Then came the shadows. Osaro started noticing them in the corner of his vision. Dark, flickering forms, moving along the edges of the church walls. He would turn, only to find nothing there. Sometimes, during late-night prayers, the microphone would distort with eerie static, and an inexplicable chill would sweep through the building. And so, the cycle continued. Every time the cult came calling, Osaro would try to resist, but the consequences were too dire. Finally, he would give in. Prophet Abontan would appear before him in his dream, shaking his head. "You think you can cheat the spirit?" he would ask. "A debt unpaid is a curse upon the debtor. If you do not pay in full, you will pay with your soul." Sacrifices upon sacrifices. Osaro kept sacrificing to the cult, and the cult kept blessing him. It continued until one night, Prophet Abontan appeared to him, telling him, "Now you must give us something more precious. A child from your flock," he hissed at him. Osaro resisted at first, but he was afflicted with visions of skeletal hands reaching out for him. His reflection whispered dark things, his own shadow moving when he stood still. Finally, he gave in. A little boy from his congregation, the son of a devoted widow who was always eager to help around the church. Osaro lured him in with promises of blessings. The boy never returned home. Osaro wept after the deed was done. Plagued by the heaviness in his conscience, Osaro visited his uncle one night. He broke down and confided in him. He admitted everything: the sacrifices, the nightmares, the fear. Reverend Esosa was horrified, but not surprised. "My son, the devil never gives gifts for free. He takes more than he gives. Pray with me. Let me lead you back to God," Reverend Esosa pleaded. But Osaro shook his head. He was too far gone. "Then renounce the cult. Confess," his uncle urged. Osaro hesitated. Confessing meant death. The cult had been watching. They knew Osaro was unstable, a liability. Before he could expose them, they struck first. One morning, a viral video surfaced. An anonymous source leaked footage of a mysterious midnight ritual. Osaro, dressed in ceremonial robes, digging beneath his own altar. The media exploded. His congregation turned against him. By evening, his name was on every news station. Prophet Osarodion, a fraud, a ritualist. His house was raided. Church members wept in disbelief. Protesters burned his posters. He tried to run, but a black car pulled up beside him. Prophet Abontan stepped out. He should have stayed silent, Osaro. Then darkness. Days later, his body was found in an abandoned building. Hands tied, eyes wide open, mouth filled with ashes. A warning to anyone who dared to cross the cult. But the true lesson: greed is never satisfied. Power without conscience is a curse. Once you make a deal with darkness, there is no escape. Power and wealth gained through evil will always demand a greater price. Osaro convinced himself that he could control the darkness, but the darkness had already claimed him. No sin exists in isolation. One sacrifice led to another. One lie led to 1,000. And in the end, he became the very monster he feared. No matter how far a man runs, he can never outrun his own shadow. And in the end, the things we bury will always rise again. Be careful where you seek miracles, because not all miracles are from God. Thank you for watching. Please let us know your favorite parts in this story. Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.